So again, about two years ago in 2014, more people started to be getting deportation notices. And once again, that church stepped up, and the current pastor has had 2 or 3 people that have been in sanctuary in that church. First, one guy was in for about 6 weeks. When I went there 2 years ago on a border trip, it was amazing. Have you heard about Rosa? Rosa was in sanctuary in that church. And do you know why they go in, by the way? People go into sanctuary because they have gotten a notice that they're going to be deported. Now, in Rosa's case, here's what she did in like 2011. She was driving, and she got to a place where there were a bunch of orange cones, a construction thing, and she didn't know which way they were marking her not to go. And she happened to turn the wrong direction into the construction zone, and the police were right there. And because she lives in Arizona, they have SB 1070, which means when that's like E-Verify, if the police pick you up, they immediately notify immigration, they notify the Department of Homeland Security to find out, does this person have documents? And when she got the notice, she went right. She chose to go into sanctuary. And that's typical. People generally go into sanctuary because they don't want to be separated from their families. She had 2 sons and a husband. And her husband wasn't picked up. He wasn't documented either. The sons were American citizens. And she did not want to be separated from her family. And if you voluntarily choose to go back, for her case, Mexico, you can't apply to return here for 10 years. Again, she would fit the category of she had people here. She'd be the adult parent of citizens. 10 years, her kids would have been grown up.
There was also care for the family as we provided radical hospitality for them. So that meant financially supporting the family because they didn't have the earnings of Rosa anymore. There was also just kind of surrounding the family with love and support to make sure they had a Christmas tree on Christmas, they had Thanksgiving dinner, that all these things to kind of make them feel as much as possible like their life was normal. Another part of providing hospitality for her was to make sure that we were strengthening her and ourselves spiritually in this time. And so we would have daily prayer vigils. You know, there's that great story that Jesus tells. It says, and Jesus told these parables to his disciples so that they would never lose heart and not give in. And he tells a story, the parable of the persistent widow. And so like persistent widows, we knocked on the doors of heaven every single day for 461 days, which is how long Rosa was in sanctuary for. We wouldn't have been able to do it without really being strengthened through the Spirit in prayer. And so that was the fundamental aspect of what it meant to have her in sanctuary. And then, of course, there was the advocating that needed to happen so that she could leave sanctuary. So that was everything from online organizing to phone calls to emails, to going to city council, going to other churches for letters of support, to going to DC twice, to doing a We Stand with Rosa campaign where we knocked on thousands and thousands of doors and put up 9,000 signs in our community. And all of this was to mobilize the community, to get the community to really live out our dream, right? We're talking a lot about what it means to dream boldly, right, on this weekend. And what does it mean for us to dream boldly of a day in which not one more deportation happens, not one more family is torn apart, not one more community is devastated by our unjust immigration system. And so we worked very hard for all that time, working also in collaboration with other churches across the nation, learning from them, us sharing with them kind of this reciprocity of wisdom and experience that happened. And she was able to leave after 461 days. Not that we were counting, but after 461 days, she was able to go home. So the work has continued, especially after the election. So many churches are contacting us saying, tell us about this work. Tell us what this work is going to look like. And so we think that there will still be the need for churches to house people. We also think there's a need for congregations to think more broadly about sanctuary and to think about ways in which in their community they can come alongside those who are most affected, to work with them for local solutions to make our communities communities that people can live without fear, with human rights and dignity. So we're really encouraging people in this time to work so that the community is sanctuary, so that we don't actually have to have anybody come into sanctuary, but that we're working alongside undocumented members to really support them in what they need in this time. I know you guys have been listening to webinars and everything, so I think I want to stop there and do some question and answers and dialogue.
Great, thank you so much. I'd like to kind of tease apart a little bit some of the process. You talked about that you have a legal aid clinic in your church, and that's how Rosa became known to you. Can you just talk a little bit more about what went into the process of deciding to offer her sanctuary? How much information about her was known by the congregation? Was there an opportunity to say no? I think we're feeling a little bit like if someone comes to your door and asks for sanctuary, how would you ever say no? And yet there may be reasons why it isn't a good fit. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a tricky question for me to answer because, Southside Sanctuary, we've been doing sanctuary since the 80s. And so the discernment happened when I was like 5 years old, and was not currently the pastor at that time. And so for us, it was and for a lot of churches, it's a combination of prayer and some study about the current system, kind of a looking at the practicalities, the logistics of sanctuary. And then different congregations, depending on their polity, have different kind of decision-making process. Whether it's the first person we took in sanctuary, Daniel, our session, decided on their own. The second time we took it to the full congregation. So I think that I would imagine that you wouldn't find yourself in a position of being asked if someone didn't already know that was a possibility because you all have communicated that to the community. So I think the most important thing in this time is to be in relationship with organizations and communities that are organizing around this issue. And so you're able to kind of hear from them what their needs are and for you to express what you're able to give. And so that might mean, I know for us right now, what we're doing is a lot of childcare. We're getting our Sunday school teachers and our nursery workers involved in offering childcare so undocumented parents can be at trainings to train them on their rights and things like that. And that's hugely important. Also say that a huge thing we did this week that was appreciated beyond measure was we made copies for like an activity that was happening in the community. Like we have a copier, like we could do that. You can do these little things that mean a lot to people.
Yeah.
I think in this time when, as allies, we're coming alongside folks, is to be really clear what we can do, communicate that clearly, and then follow through. That's how we become trustworthy people and trustworthy communities. And not every congregation is going to be able to do the work of sanctuary, but it doesn't mean that you can't come alongside them in some way.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that, after already deciding to be a sanctuary church, already opening yourself to welcoming somebody or working with the community, we are wondering if is it right for everyone who might want sanctuary to actually be in sanctuary? So are there people who might come forward seeking sanctuary that it wouldn't be the right fit? I mean, it's a very public role and stance, and we're just curious about that discernment. Maybe it happens at the legal aid clinic where somebody might want to seek sanctuary but may not be right. Is that even a consideration, or am I missing something?
No, absolutely. So there's a few considerations when someone is discerning sanctuary. The first is how strong is their legal case? A lot of the people who've been in sanctuary have had a strong way to advocate for their case to be closed through our current immigration system. And so the majority of the people that have gone into sanctuary had a reasonable expectation of being able to leave sanctuary. Now that hasn't always been the case. And one of the things that we always encourage people to do is try not to fall into the trap of the good immigrant and the bad immigrant. And a lot of the folks that we are having in sanctuary have criminal records, mostly DUIs. And we're really pushing people to understand that if you have a DUI, if you made a mistake, you need to make amends. You need to kind of figure out that legal system, but there shouldn't be additional punishments in terms of being separated from your family. So there are cases that churches take on that are harder cases. And ultimately, it's up to the person to figure out whether they want to do sanctuary. And sanctuary isn't something that a lot of people want to do. We haven't had that many people rushing to do sanctuary because it's so difficult. The other thing I will say is that there are people who are public about sanctuary, and there are people who are private about it. The people who are public about it, I think that one of the things that needs to be talked about with the person is how they see their leadership in the movement. For both the people who are in sanctuary, our church, they really saw themselves as part of a movement. They saw their story as beneficial, and their struggle as beneficial, and so they were able to suffer and know that it was kind of redemptive suffering, that something greater was going to come out of that suffering because they saw themselves as part of a movement. I would also say, like, I'm not saying that like you have to be a person of faith, but it doesn't matter what your faith is, but you know, it can be hard work, and to have those reservoirs to pull from is also important. Then there's people who need sanctuary and don't want to be public, and so that can be a whole other concern. You know, sanctuary is I'll say that sanctuary is very difficult, and so people need to look at all the options, because what we're going to find are there going to be less and less paths forward to advocate for people's cases. It's going to be much harder. People will be in sanctuary much longer, and so people need to look at all of their options. And if the option is going into sanctuary or being deported to horrific violence in Honduras, then being in sanctuary is obviously, even though it's hard, is the preferable choice.
So thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of on a day-to-day basis, what are some of the things that happen around Rosa's family, activities of the church, and in particular, we're curious about what happens with children. We've heard kind of different things about, can children leave and go to school? Does it depend on if they're citizens or not? Could you just say a little bit more about some of the daily activities around a family?
Yeah. So it varies a great deal. I'll talk about Rosa. So every morning she would wake up early and call her kids who were staying at home. It was easier for her children to live in their house because her husband would get up very early in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and go off to work. And then she would call them on the phone to wake them up, make sure they were on their way to school, and they could walk to school on their own. And so logistically, it made more sense for them to stay at home. They would come and be with her on the weekends and during in the evenings of the weekdays. And so she would, we have a multitude of different programs in the church, and so she would help out with those different programs. She would talk to media. We have a lot of groups that come and visit the borderlands, and so she would do tons of presentations. She would cook a meal for them, and food that would be eaten there and food that would be taken home. So it was kind of this back and forth, and she would do laundry for them. She would do all the kind of things that a mom typically does, but she would just do it from the church. Now, there was a woman named Hilda, and she was in sanctuary at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Austin, Texas. And her son lived with her in sanctuary. She was a single mother, and so he lived with her. They were recently arrived from Central America, and so he was in proceedings as well. And so he had a legal process that they were following through on. But he was able to go back and forth to school with no jeopardy. But it's an interesting question. When we began to see that the Obama administration was going to be deporting Central American children, I had this moment of like, oh, are we going to have to do sanctuary school? Are we going to have to like have retired teachers come in and do homeschool for kids? But we haven't had that situation. I will tell you that we don't know what it's going to look like after this upcoming Friday. And so one of the things that we're telling people is to, even if you have someone who needs to go to the sanctuary right away, to take them in quietly and kind of wait to see what happens and to see what the landscape looks like, what the battleground looks like before figuring out how we can fight the different cases more publicly.
Can you just say a little bit more about legal issues? So both, I think our question is both, it sounds like with the legal aid clinic, you might already have in-house some resources to help you understand the legal issues they're facing and maybe educate the congregation about it. I guess alongside that, I know a number of people who are curious if there are any legal issues that the church faces in taking this stance that, you know, we'd want to know about.
Yeah, so beginning with the person who's in sanctuary, I think our congregation got a pretty good lesson in immigration law. At one point in the height of the campaign, I thought I could just take the bar and I could become a lawyer, which is not true, of course. But and so we were working with a lawyer who had been involved in sanctuary back in the 1980s, and who was not just a skilled lawyer around immigration, but also knew about community organizing and knew the need to be creative. And so finding a lawyer who can really think imaginatively is really, really important. That relationship between a church, a family, and the immigration lawyer is very, very key. And we're always happy to put lawyers in contact with other lawyers who've done the work of sanctuary, just because it is a little bit of a different kind of thing to advocate for somebody who's living in sanctuary. And so there's, within the immigration system, there is something called prosecutorial discretion, and that allows us to advocate for discretion to be used. That will probably largely go away. And so how we advocate moving forward is we're going to have to see how that plays out. Now, in terms of the legal risks that a church might be taking, we don't know. I mean, sanctuary is not something that is like recognized by the government. They know what happens. They do have their policy of sensitive locations, where they have said they won't come in to apprehend someone unless there's extenuating circumstances or unless they've gotten approval from on high. They won't go into houses of worship, schools, and hospitals. We don't know if that memo will stand, if that practice will stand. We just don't know. It could be considering, no one has been convicted of harboring doing sanctuary work. The convictions have been around transportation. And so back in the 1980s, when my predecessor, John Fife, was convicted on charges along with a dozen other people, it was usually transportation, conspiracy, things of that nature, not generally harboring. That doesn't mean that the government couldn't decide to come after churches. And it's an interesting situation that we're in because we're dealing with this president-elect who is very, what are the adjectives to use? You don't quite know what he's going to do. You don't know what's going to capture his attention. And you don't know where his tweets are going to direct him, And so there's been many moments, we had a New York Times article, and I thought, what if he reads that? What if he decides, I'm going after these churches? If that happened, it would be this very, very interesting battle. It was kind of the battle in the 1980s in terms of the freedom of practice of religion. It's a First Amendment, in my opinion, it's a First Amendment right. It's a practice of our religion. Because our scriptures are pretty darn clear. Jesus is pretty darn clear. It's the words written in red, which I'm told are the words we're really supposed to pay attention to. In Matthew 25, he says we are to pay special attention to the least of these, and we are to welcome the stranger and love our neighbor. And so if the administration was to go after churches, we would be looking at a fight around First Amendment freedom of practice of religion. And so we might be finding ourselves in that situation. And I think it's a time to be bold and to kind of lean into the fact that the president-elect will call our activities illegal. The president-elect will call us criminal. The president-elect will call us unpatriotic. The president-elect will call us communist. It will be all of those old terms that they use, and we will be in good company because they've called Dr. King one of the biggest threats to America, right?
Right. Thank you. So one question, a slightly different direction, came up around the conversations that you have with people who really support the current immigration policies and the deportation practices. We imagine that you're a public figure in Tucson around this, and probably find yourself in some of those conversations. What is it? Tell us a little bit about your response when you engage with somebody who really supports deportation and the current immigration system.
Yeah, so I don't actually talk to those people a whole lot. They mostly just send me really nasty emails, and I haven't returned those emails yet because they've called me all manner of nasty names. They've said I am bringing down America. I am the reason that America is not great. They tell me. So I don't have a whole lot of conversations with them, but. And I kind of live in this little progressive bubble. But the one thing when people kind of are playing devil's advocate, they say, well, they broke the law, why are they here? What I do is I usually kind of go to my heart, and my heart not as a person of faith, but as a mother. And I say, you know what? If my kids, my kids are sick right now, I'm sick, my kids are sick, and they have antibiotics. That is such a privilege. What if I was living in a place where my kids couldn't get medicine, that I couldn't feed them properly? What if the dreams that I had for my kids could never be realized in the place where I was living? What if my daughter was being threatened with assault of all manner of assault? There is nothing that I wouldn't do to move my kids to somewhere safe. There's no wall you could build that would be high enough for me. I would find a way over that wall because I love my kids that much. And so I think that it's important to kind of speak to the heart and say, well, what would you do for your kids? Like, these are families that we're talking about who are making very, very difficult decisions. Nobody wants to leave their home. They're not just saying like, oh, what should we do? Well, let's move to America. That'll be great. These are decisions that are heartbreaking decisions that come out of heart-wrenching poverty and terrible situations. And so I think it's also important in kind of when we have the opportunity to educate people to really look at the push and pull factors of immigration, to see how folks are being pushed off of their land by our economic policies. And so to kind of problematize the situation, but really to think these are moms and dads trying to do best by their kids.
Thank you. We just have a few more minutes, I think. I just want to take a pause and check in with the group here to see if there are other questions that I didn't get to that we brainstormed, okay? Thanks. The question was asked, if you know anything about when your church discerned to become a sanctuary church, either in the past, at the beginning, or recently, if there was, if it was a difficult decision, if there were tensions, if people voted against it, even this recent time with Rosa. Can you say more about any of that?
Yeah, we're people who firsthand have witnessed extreme suffering caused by our immigration system. And so back when they were discerning sanctuary in the 1980s, it took a long time to discern, but they were encountering people who had survived death squads and torture. So it wasn't that controversial. It was kind of a no-brainer for them to say, we have to do whatever we can to keep these folks safe. They did vote back in the 80s. They voted by secret ballot. There was one person who voted no, and he went and reported the decision of the church to the government. The most recent time we voted, we had one person who voted no, but she was very supportive. She wasn't really voting no. And so we haven't really had that experience. But that can be, I mean, I'm very sympathetic to that. And, these are going to be, I think I would just say this, these are going to be a long 4 years. And there's this urgency that many of us feel. And we need to realize that not everyone sitting in the pews with us might feel that urgency. And so there might be things that we can do quickly, like do childcare for meetings, or make copies, or push local officials to do whatever needs to be done in that city, while you're bringing people along and while you're talking to them about why we need to act in a more in a bolder way. So there's time for that discernment. I know people are feeling like, oh my God, the apocalypse is coming on Friday. We need to do something right now. And it's true, we do need to do something right now, but you need to pay attention to the pulse of your congregation and kind of meet them where they're at, because you don't want to move so fast that you fracture the congregation or set yourself back. You want to be able to move at the pace that is comfortable. It doesn't need to be comfortable, but that is appropriate for your congregation.
Great. Thank you so much. In the webinar, you mentioned the website Sanctuary Not Deportation. Is that sort of the place that you see kind of bringing together the most people in the sanctuary movement right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's where we're trying to ramp up capacity as much as possible. We're totally volunteers, and so we're going to be working on developing more and more resources. The toolkit is on there. The webinar can be found there. We're going to be developing more resources to help congregation. It will live there on that site.
Wonderful. We're connected. We're linked on our website to that, and just thank you so much for your willingness today to be with us in this way, in this virtual way. But you bring the reality of this work home. It hits home when we hear it from you, and just thank you for your witness. We'll be praying for you in your ministry if you will pray for us in ours, and just blessings on your Sunday.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you all. It's just great to have these conversations. And I'll just leave you with this final thing. We're in this unique moment, this dark moment in our nation, but there's this wonderful Sikh activist by the name of Valerie Kaur, Kaur. She's fabulous. And she says, maybe this darkness that we're experiencing is not the darkness of the grave, but the darkness of the womb, and maybe some new life. Behold, I am making all things new. Maybe there is something new coming. And so in this time, Valerie reminds us to remember what the midwives tell us. The midwives tell us to breathe and to push. So we need to make sure in our communities of faith that we are breathing deeply, and that we're allowing others in our community to come into our sacred spaces to pray and to breathe deeply. And then we have to push like heaven to make sure that we are being disciples of Christ in this very difficult time. And so my prayers are with you all. I would love to stay in contact. I would love to see the work that you all are doing with Macalester College and other things that you all are doing. I want to learn from you all in terms of what wisdom you're finding, and together we'll move forward to build the beloved community that we're called to build.
Amen. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.